You're watching Up to Speed on Cardinal Television at St. John Fisher College.
Hello and welcome to Up to Speed, a show that brings you up to speed on some of the big stories within the sports world this week. I'm your host, James Deasy, and let's get right into the show. Los Angeles Lakers are actually winning again. How about that? Ever since Kobe Bryant, one of the best to ever play the game, retired, a young star team has finally taken the reins. Luke Walton, a former player that played alongside Bryant, has taken over as the youngest head coach in the NBA. Players including D'Angelo Russell, Julius Randle, Nick Young, and Brandon Ingram are leading the way. It will be interesting to see if the Lakers can hold a playoff spot this year in the ever-so-difficult Western Conference. History was made again this week as John Carroll University took down Mount Union in football. Now you may ask, why is this important? Well, Mount Union had the longest regular game winning streak in NCAA history of 112 games. John Carroll beat them with a score of 31-28. This streak dated back to 1994, a year before I was even born. That's something crazy to think about. Congratulations to John Carroll for beating that streak, and also Mount Union for holding that long streak that it did. We all know that there have been several games over the past few years in the NFL that have been poorly called. After the incident with the Bills kicker Dan Carpenter being hit on a dead ball foul by Seahawks corner Richard Sherman in a highly anticipated Monday night game, and this past week with a blatant face mask on Cowboys receiver Cole Beasley that wasn't called, Goodell had to speak up. Goodell is skeptical about bringing in referees on a full-time basis. He states, having full-time officials will not take out the human element of the game. Hopefully this is a step in the right direction as several fans are furious about the calls this season. Dwayne Wade made his return to Miami this past week, but with his new team, the Chicago Bulls. Several speculations over the offseason with the Miami Heat owner Pat Riley and Wade. No one actually knows what happened. Nonetheless, Wade got a standing ovation in his introduction to the game, and the Bulls were able to steal a win. Wade, one of the classiest players in the NBA, it was great to see the fans of Miami still love him after his many years of hard work and bringing championships to that organization. Remember how we talked about the college rankings last week and how there might be some upsets? Well, unfortunately for Clemson, they were a part of it. Facing Pittsburgh, Clemson finally taking its first loss of the season this late is actually very scary. The college football rankings are tough, and with a poor decision at the end by quarterback Deshaun Watson, don't be surprised if Clemson drops down in the rankings after this week. The NFL's game of the week this past week was the Dallas Cowboys against the gritty Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers haven't been the same since Big Ben hasn't been 100%, but the Cowboys are still rolling. The Cowboys were able to take the W and continue their winning streak. They are arguably the best football team playing right now in the NFL. Owner Jerry Jones stated after the game that Dak Prescott will continue to be the starting quarterback as Tony Romo, who's finally healthy, is going to be the backup. Smart decision, but we shall see how the rest of the season goes for rookie Prescott. The U.S. men's soccer team went up against Mexico in its World Cup qualifying match this past week. Someone has to say it, but what great timing with what happened with the presidential election. But anyways, Mexico ends up defeating the United States by a score of 2-1. The men's next opponent will be Costa Rica this week. Hopefully the outcome is a little different and they come out on the winning end. A big weekend for the UFC this past week as UFC 205 concluded in Madison Square Garden. The talk is all about Conor McGregor. McGregor beat Eddie Alvarez with a 4-punch combo for the knockout to capture the title. If you remember, New York City passed the bill in 1997 about not practicing mixed martial arts. What a historic night for the UFC and Madison Square Garden. Very interested to see what happens with these two in the future, but also what they just announced was UFC 211 in April will be held in Buffalo, so Western New York, up where we are, so they're already taking advantage of having that bill being lifted. So I'm very excited to see what happens within these next couple of months for the UFC. This has been Up to Speed. Make sure to tune in next week for more sports news that you need to hear. I'm your host, James Deasy. Catch you next time.